Jesus' precious name. Everyone who has bread, say amen. Very, very quickly, Matthew chapter 24. I will start from verse 11. Matthew chapter 24, verse 11. He said, and many false prophets shall rise and deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. If you read from verse 1. All right, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. If you now read from verse 1, he said, and Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thine coming and the end of the world? This evening, I speak quickly on the subject, surviving in the last days. Surviving in the last days. Our objective is first of all to understand the signs of the last days. And then to understand survival strategies in the last days. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. He said, know this. This know also, that in the last days, perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affections, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. The Lord bless his word. This will be one of the most important messages that you will ever hear. Surviving in the last days. The scripture made it abundantly clear that we are in the last days. God never told us categorically when the end will come. But he gave us signs and signals. In scripture, he said in Matthew chapter 24, verse 36 to verse 43, he said, but of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But notice that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have allowed his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. The Lord bless his word in Jesus' name. There is no categorical statement of when it will come. But throughout scriptures, there are signs and signals that will identify the end of the age. Signs that will show. You don't know the exact date, but you know that you can know that you are around the corner. God did not totally leave us in the dark. Very quickly, we're going to look at those signs and signals of the last days. Number one is the abundance of deception and falsehood. The abundance of deception and falsehood. In Matthew chapter 24 verse 5, where he gave most of these signs, he said, many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. They shall say, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. In Matthew 24 verse 11, the same Matthew, and many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. So one of the things that will identify for us that we are around the end is that there shall be an explosion of deception, an explosion of falsehood. A lot of false prophets, false apostles, false teachers, false doctrines. A lot of heretic practices and operations. That at times you are watching and you say, how did this originate? What's happening here? When we came into the Lord many, many years ago, first in the late 70s and then in the mid 80s, around 86, when we came, there was very few mention of the word false prophet. Very few. I can't even remember anybody identified as false prophet in those days. People were passionate for God, on fire, zealous for God. But today, there are people who have no dealings with Jesus Christ. They don't know what it means to be born again. They have never been born again. People who otherwise should have been native doctors or witch doctors, who are wearing suit and tie, and are pastors and preachers and apostles and prophets and everything. The challenge right now is that there are fakes and false ones that are celebrated as real. And there are real ones that are suspected to be fake. As a matter of fact, you will soon know also that we live in a world where the agenda of the Antichrist is so rife. When they classify pastors, you see people classified together, showing that the difference and the discernment between the real and the unreal is gone. Those who are experts in castigating churches, when they do that, they do it together. It's a mixture. I came across somebody who said that she went to a place where I think she paid almost ₦1 million or something for deliverance or for healing or for help. And at the end of the day, no solution. So that is one sign. We are hearing now of false prophets, false apostles, false teachers, and false everything that we have ever known, than we have ever known in history. It's an explosion. It's an escalation in Africa, across Nigeria, and the nations of the world. Number two is the abundance of conflicts and crises in the earth. Just abundance of conflicts, crises, and wars in the earth. It was predicted in scriptures. If you read further from the verse 5 where we read of Matthew chapter 24, many shall come in my name saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And then you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come, but the very end hasn't come. That is, you are around the end, but it's not the end yet. Abundance of conflicts, crisis, tension everywhere. Places where you have ethnic crisis, where you have religious crisis. We heard of Iran-Iraq war that lasted for years. Gulf War. Israel under threat from Iran, and so on and so forth. When you are hearing of wars, rumors of wars, is this going to start a third world war? Is this going to happen? You are around the corner. The abundance of conflicts, crises, and wars. Number 4, or number 3, is the abundance of the Antichrist. Or rather, the abundance of Antichrist and anti-God sentiment. There is the abundance of the of Antichrist, anti-Christian, anti-God sentiment in the earth. Then you know we are around the end. In 1 John chapter 2 verse 18. 1 John chapter 2 verse 18. He said, little children, it is the last time. He said, and you know, and as you have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now there are many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. We are not talking of the main Antichrist yet. You see, there are little agents of the devil, many of them, representing the agenda of the devil. There are plenty of them. What are we talking about? We are talking about an era where there is a hatred for God like never before. A hatred for church and church people like never before. A hatred for Christianity like never before. We are in that era now. Where people consider you a fool to go to church. They consider you have been brainwashed to go to church. It's not a surprising thing. It is the agenda of the end. Where somebody will open a whole Facebook page, a whole social media page, YouTube, whatever. And his topic, he doesn't have a solution to offer nobody. But to say what is wrong with church, what is wrong with a pastor, what is wrong with this, what is wrong with that. No answer. I told somebody some time ago, I said, what you are posting, who do you expect to change? I said, supposing because of what you posted on social media, on YouTube or Facebook, somebody decided I'm not going to church again. It means church is not correct. And the person ends in hell. How do you rescue such a soul? And how do you end in heaven? By sending somebody out of church to hell. That's it, the time we are in. So don't be shocked when people pour venom on Christ, pour venom on God, pour venom on church. They pour venom. A church building is a challenge, but a cinema building is not a challenge. A brewery is not a challenge. A nightclub is no problem. If they say the largest nightclub in the world can now take like 200,000 people in one nightclub party, nobody will say nothing. But a church building is a problem. Because we are in the end of the age where everything about the church irritates the devil and his people. Because he knows the end is here. The abundance. No wonder he said that you shall be hated of all nations for my sake. And the greatest challenge is that there are a lot of ignorant people, ordinary good church people recruited like those who followed Absalom without knowing where they are going, recruited into this anti-God, anti-church, anti-Christian agenda. Talk anything and talk anyhow against God, against church, against people, against pastor, anyhow, because it seems to be the fad of the hour. It is the in thing. Brothers and sisters, don't be shocked. That is the agenda of the season. But in the midst of that, the church triumphs, because it's coming for a glorious church. That was number 3, the abundance of antichrist, anti-Christian, and anti-God sentiment around the earth. Number 4 is the abundance of plagues and famines. The abundance of plagues. What we are seeing today is in fulfillment of what is predicted to take place in the end of the world. He said that in verse 7 of Matthew 24. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes and in diverse places. Now, so we are dealing with the abundance of plagues and famines in the earth. It is a sign and a symptom of the end time. We are dealing with a lot of viruses now. There is what they call the SARS, S-A-R-S, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. It came out of China again in the year of 2002. It ravaged, it ran quickly, it was arrested suddenly. Then there is one they call the MERS, M-E-R-S, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, came in the year 2012. And then all the way to 2020, it did its own ravaging. All of them, coincidentally, are coronaviruses. SARS is coronavirus. SARS coronavirus caused SARS. MERS coronavirus caused MERS infection. That's why they call this one the new coronavirus, because its behavior changed. As it was, like they say, some people thought it was tweaked in the laboratory to have maybe 90% mortality and high infectivity rate, causing the COVID-19 pandemic that is on the world now. Then you have the Ebola virus. Ebola virus disease hit from Central Africa to Western Africa and so forth, and then literally across the world from 2014 to 2016. It appeared first in 1976. And then it ravaged. It says there will be plagues, there will be pestilences. And then, of course, the coronavirus. But there is one that has been there that people are not aware of, or they are aware of, but they don't think is that dangerous, and that is HIV. The early 80s, mid-80s. Ravaged the earth and is still there. As at the end of 2018, in 1 year, 1 million deaths recorded from HIV/AIDS. As at the end of 2018. So far, since it started, HIV has killed over 32 million people that were recorded. 32 million. That is apart from those who die and nobody knew it was HIV. It didn't go to hospital. So it is, and these things, I mean, we grew up, and such plagues, occasionally you hear of meningitis here, you hear of this and that here, but these things are happening on a global dimension. These are signs and symptoms that we are close to the end of the age. The abundance of plagues, the abundance of famines. Number 5 is the abundance of natural disasters. We read the same passage we read just now. There will be pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, landslides, tornadoes, cyclones, flooding. And then you heard of wildfires, either in California or in Australia or somewhere. And these things just keep coming and keep going and keep coming. The devil knows that his time is short. In recent time, we have experienced many of these types of these things. But I'm sure two will stand out in your heart. The Hurricane Katrina that ravaged America, especially New Orleans, in the year of 2005. $125 billion worth of property destroyed. 1,200 deaths. But that was shadow compared with the tsunami of the Pacific Ocean around Japan. A little crack under the earth in the sea that lasted for only 6 minutes. It lasted for only 6 minutes, 15,899 deaths. From the displacement of the water that gushed on the whole of that territory. 6,157 people injured. 2,529 people. 2,529 people missing. $360 billion worth of resources destroyed. 6 minutes of slide in the water. That is the world. And before now, these things we are talking about were not as rampant as it is. But the devil knows his time is short, so he is doing a lot of overtime. We are in that season of the abundance of natural disaster. And once you see that, you know we're around the end. That was point number 5. Number 6 is the abundance of iniquity. The abundance of iniquity. In the book of Matthew 24 we are reading, and in verse 12 it said, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So we live in the days of the abundance of iniquity. Today, what little children of 12 years know and little children of 10 years know today, adults of 25 years in those days didn't know. Today, the whole world is almost worse than how Sodom and Gomorrah was before God destroyed it. It was almost as it's literally worse than how it was in the days of Noah before God destroyed it. 27 countries, not 2,700. Not 2 countries, 0.7. 27 countries. There are 27 countries in the world where it is legalized for man to marry man and woman to marry woman. That was the iniquity of Sodom and Gomorrah. Countries all the way from the Netherlands since the year of 2001, almost 19 years ago, they started legalizing. 2003 in Belgium, 2005 in the Canadian Parliament, 2005 all the way, even South Africa in Africa here, and so on and so on. You keep on going on and going on. Even in the Pacific areas, 27 countries. There are some of these countries where a man and a man walks to meet you, and they say we want to marry, and you say I won't marry you. You go to jail. There was a case, I think, in America where a woman who I think was selling flour or something, and 2 men came and said they want to buy something for their wedding. He said, 2 of you are wedding? Yes. Okay, I'm not selling. And they took her to court. The case went all the way to Supreme Court. In America, she won the case. That's the world we are in now. The abundance of iniquity. There are places where prostitution is recognized as an official work. They call it commercial sex work. They are licensed, recognized by police, protected. They pay tax. In that country, somebody can walk to a prostitution shop and see naked women standing inside glass casing. The way you see shoe and suit inside glass, naked, complete, and standing is like that, and then you point the one you want. It's like commodity you came to buy. That's the world the literal world we are in now. We're driving in New York some time ago, my wife and I, and saw two men on the road at the junction, kissing each other in the broad daylight. Two men. The sight want to make you vomit. Today, children are forced to be taught in some Western countries. They call it alternative lifestyle. You teach them from childhood, whether they want to be regularly married or they want to be homosexuals, whether they want to be bisexuals, whatever they want, you teach them. They say they have the right to know so they can choose what they want. The abundance. Just before this coronavirus explosion, one of those countries that have one of the worst disasters, they had, I think it was a gay conference. Men, homosexual. The stadium was filled with naked people. Men. When they took the 10 Commandments from American classrooms, because that nation was founded on God, when it was removed from the classrooms, there was an explosion in murders, in killings. Teenage pregnancy went up by 70%. And birth. So you have children that were born out of wedlock. Plenty. Experience no fatherly love, no homely love. So they are hardened criminals. They don't know what it means to love. 3 million sexually transmitted diseases among teenagers yearly. When we grew up, there are things that you frowned upon that is now normal because we are in the end of the age. It is the abundance of iniquity. It's important for us to know. He said, teach us to number our days so we can apply our hearts to wisdom. Number 7 is the abundance of wickedness. He said, the love of many shall wax cold. The love of many shall wax cold. That is, love will die in the heart of people. Love for God, love for man. Abundance of wickedness. That is an explosion of selfishness. To your tent, O Israel. Everybody on their own. Where people are more concerned about themselves than about and into themselves than anybody else. I came across a story of a woman that was gradually stabbed to death. While about 30-something neighbors were watching. Nobody asked, what did she do? Who is that? Heartlessness, wickedness. So you have people whose assignment today is they are called ritualists. They trade in human body parts. They are called terrorists. They are called armed robbers. Others are kidnappers. They carry people and ask for money. And there are those they kill if they can't pay money. It's a very, very wicked generation that is pathognomonic of the end time. A whole exam can be failed by a young lady who did not fulfill the wishes of the lecturer. Not that she failed the exam. A young man was complaining to me bitterly the other day. He said, I preached on forgiveness. And he was able to forgive his lecturer, a woman, that he was meant to graduate with second class upper. But the woman's carelessness and wickedness gave him second class lower. This is almost 10 years he graduated. He has not been able to forgive the woman. Until last Sunday we taught on forgiveness. A person can lose promotion. He is now junior to his seniors because of some boss's wickedness. That's the wicked world, where people don't consider each other. It's the abundance of wickedness. That is the world. Sign of the end of the age. You can go on what do you call it now, YouTube today, and see videos you will not like to watch. They will kill a person and put it on the internet. The process of killing. I didn't know what they call kidnapping when we were growing up, not to talk of ritual killing. The word terrorism was not in Nigeria, let's say 15 years ago. But we're in the end. So let us understand. And we are not saying this thing so that anybody should be afraid. Because there is a cover for the people of God. There is a cover. In Malachi chapter 4, verse 1. He said, for behold, the day cometh that shall burn like an oven, where the earth will be like it is inside an oven. And all the proud here, and all that do wickedly, shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that he shall not leave them neither root nor branch. The days we are in will be very terrible for those who don't know God. Go ahead, I've not finished. But unto you that fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will arise with healing in his wings. While others are being roasted, you shall go forth and you shall grow up as calves of the stall. And you shall tread down the wicked, for there shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. This is number 7. The abundance of wickedness. Number 8 is the restoration of Israel. The restoration of Israel. As the master was talking, he said in verse 32 of Matthew 12, he said, when you see the fig tree, I give you the parable of the fig tree. Matthew 24:32. Matthew 24:32. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When its branch is yet tender and it begins to put forth leaves, you know that summer is near. Bible theologians and everyone alike, judging from Bible history, identifies this fig tree as Israel. When you see the nation of Israel become a nation, come together, then you realize that the end is nearby. He said in Isaiah chapter 66 verse 8, Isaiah chapter 66 verse 8, he said, who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, he brought forth her children. Israel as a nation was literally born in one day. After almost 2,000 years of being scattered around the earth, that nation came together on the 14th of May, 1948, and became a nation. Under very intense hostility of neighboring nations, they became a nation. And the miracle of Israel did not stop there. During the course of their dispersion, some Russian Jews, Ukraine, Germany, they were all over the world. The Hebrew language disappeared. Everywhere they went, it was the language of those places they spoke. But God gave a prophecy. He said, I will return to them their language. In Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 9. I will, for then will I turn to the people. I will return it to them a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent. Not only did the people return, their language returned. Pure, ancient, original Hebrew. Returned with. It's one of the greatest miracles of their return. It's not possible for a language to disappear